Don't be a bad son or daughter. Mother's Day is less than 2 weeks away right now. What have you done? Have you gotten your mother a present yet? Well, if you're looking for the perfect gift to celebrate the moms in your life, Aura Frames are beautiful Wi-Fi digitally connected picture frames that allow you to share and display unlimited photos. And it's super easy to upload and share photos via the Aura app. And if you're going to give Aura as a gift, the amazing thing about this, you can even personalize the frame with preloaded photos and memories. Also, if your mom or your aunt or your grandma or whomever you're going to give this as a gift to is technically challenged, you can even set up their Wi-Fi or on the, not their actual Wi-Fi, but you can set up the frame to connect to their Wi-Fi. When they take it out of the box, you don't even have to open it up. It doesn't matter. Grandmothers, new mothers, aunts, even the friends in your life, every mom loves an Aura frame. It is named the best digital frame by Wirecutter. Yes, Wirecutter. Aura frames are guaranteed to bring joy to moms of all ages. In my case, it's bringing joy to my kids' aunts, or I guess otherwise known as my sisters. So right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com/majority to get $30 off plus free shipping. And it's on their best-selling frame. That's Aura Frames, AURA, frames.com/majority. Use the code majority at checkout to save. Now is the time to get your Mother's Day gift. Don't slack. Terms and conditions apply, of course. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
If I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, we're packed. Tyler Vasseur, letter carrier and shop steward in the National Association of Letter Carriers, Branch 9. Making the National Association of Letter Carriers a little more responsive to its membership, or frankly, a lot more responsive. Then David Dayen, executive editor at the American Prospect, on the recent FTC ruling that non-compete contracts are non-enforceable, and also on the decrepit Live Nation. Meanwhile, Marjorie Taylor Greene announces she's moving ahead with her Mike Johnson ouster plan. Cops and pro-Israel protesters ratchet up the violence on those campus pro-peace protests across the country. Meanwhile, Netanyahu vows to invade Rafah with or without a deal. And the Saudis, when the Saudis say you're not a partner for peace, you know you've got a problem. They don't trust Netanyahu. The Fed to meet today, expected to delay rate cuts. Biden administration moves to reclassify marijuana as a Schedule III drug. Good move. Won't have as much of an impact as we want, but you need legislation for that. On a day that Florida's 6-week abortion ban goes into effect, Democrats in Arizona make their final push to repeal Arizona's total abortion ban. That antebellum one, or actually, I guess it was 1864, so it was during Bellum.
Bellamy.
As expected, Democrats win that special election in Buffalo, squeezing the Republican majority even more in the House. Mississippi lawmakers make a move to expand Medicaid, but face a Republican governor veto. Johnson & Johnson move forward with a $6.5 billion settlement over talc lawsuits. And if you've been listening to this show over the past 5 or 6 years, you knew this was coming from those interviews I did at the Tort Law Conference in Vegas. Lastly, the EEOC updates workplace harassment guidelines to protect trans rights. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. It is Wednesday. Some people refer to it as the Hump Day, in which you are halfway past the week, or I guess we're at the middle way of the week. Emma Viglin's celebrating today's Hump Day by not showing up at work.
Sometimes you just don't. You just let the hump go past itself. You don't need to even go over it yourself.
That's right.
Hang
Sometimes
out.
you bypass the hump and just
go
all of
around
a
the
sudden
hump.
you're on the other
Not
side.
working.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Is that talc? Is that the Johnson & Johnson?
Yes. Johnson & Johnson baby talcum powder, which has not been, I don't know if they've changed the formula. I believe they have. But for a long time they had stuff that was not good to have in your lungs on this, and they were aware for a long time. I'd have to go back and listen to the interviews, and some of those interviews I think are 3 or 4 or 5 years old, when there were tort lawyers who were beginning to bring these cases. They take a long time to develop, but when I go back in October to that conference, we'll see if we can't get a sort of a wrap up on that. But that's a $6.5 billion settlement that I think is probably over, 10 years. It will be paid out. So
It's just interesting because Neil Katyal, the lawyer, was courtside at the Nuggets-Lakers game saying, how did this happen? And I think part of the way you get courtside at a Lakers game is make $2,465 an hour working on behalf of Johnson & Johnson in that case.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when he was representing, I think it was Nestle at the Supreme Court, arguing that while child slave labor is bad, it's not necessarily anything that we can do about in this country.
Yep.
In terms of if it's employed in other countries. I firmly believe that everyone deserves counsel in a criminal trial. But some of these big-brained lawyers love to make it like it's part of the system. And if I'm only doing this because I believe in the system. Well, you know what? When you're a defense attorney in a civil case, you don't have to do that. They have enough money. They will find somebody. And if you just happen to be the person sitting in that chair when they come by, it's one of two things. Either you're in desperate need of money, and that's why you're doing it, and you should acknowledge that after the fact, or you're just scummy.
Or you want to go to the Lakers game.
Or you want, or you just, yes, you're just greedy and you don't care about that stuff. So, meanwhile, let's turn to what's going on in D.C. today. This is a sort of a funny little drama of people I don't like, and so I'm enjoying it. Mike Johnson is perhaps one of the probably the second most powerful theocrat we've ever had in office in this country. The first being Mike Pence, and of course he was vice president. Mike Johnson, in an interview last night with News Nation, talking about superstar Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. And this is the first time he has sort of like stepped out of his genteel demeanor to slag one of his fellow colleagues. He's doing this because he knows the Democrats have already said we will essentially protect his speakership for the time being. Basically, I think giving us an indication that there was a trade over the supplemental war aid, Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and some aid to Gaza. Here is Mike Johnson with News Nation's Blake Berman.
Let's talk about your future.
Yeah.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Mm-hmm.
No fan of yours.
Bless her heart. Yeah.
Is she a serious lawmaker?
Oh, pause it. Oh, and there you go. Bless her heart. So we now know that is, that is the nasty iteration of that. Incidentally, when I say that too, that's what I mean. Yeah. I mean, F them.
It's different coming from like a very religious fundamentalist to say bless her.
Well, exactly. Yeah. It just goes to show like I'm also insincere when I say it in a way that seems like I actually do care about that person, but go ahead.
No fan of yours.
Bless her heart. Yeah.
Is she a serious lawmaker?
I don't think she's proving to be. No. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about her. I got to do my job, and we do the right thing, and we let the chips fall where they may. And that's my philosophy. That's how we're governing. We're gonna keep the train on the tracks and show the American people that not just what we're against, but what we're for. That there's a conservative agenda that is necessary to get the country back on the right track, and the way for us to do that is to keep and grow the House majority. Descending into chaos and closing the House down and vacating the chair again is exactly the opposite of what needs to happen.
Let's talk about
what a rhino this guy is. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's always standing by the bat phone. She's got all of her Google alerts going.
Oh, was I mentioned?
Constantly updating. And as soon as he says that, Marjorie Taylor Greene schedules this press conference for this morning.
I think the American people need to see a recorded vote of does the members of Congress support the uniparty? Is this what they support? I think every member of Congress needs to take that vote and let the chips fall where they may. And so next week, I am going to be calling this.
Pause it for 1 second. One of the things that I think people aren't talking about is how much Mike Johnson and Marjorie Taylor Greene agree on chips.
Gambling
and chips and gravity. Those two have found common cause for chips falling where they may.
I do look forward to the vote on does members of Congress support the uniparty.
Well, this is the interesting dynamic here, and I think it's part of the Democrats' calculation. They seem to believe that, with good reason, even if they were to throw the House in chaos again, by not helping Mike Johnson and having the Republicans go for iteration in terms of leadership, putting aside that they probably made a deal with Johnson for the funding. But they also know that simply voting in a way that maintains Johnson's speakership is in and of itself a wedge issue for some of these Republicans. And it'll be interesting to see if Marjorie Taylor Greene, continues to essentially take the sledgehammer to that wedge and pounding on it. But go back a little bit. It's nice, again, to hear them so in sync when it comes to chips and falling.
Every member of Congress needs to take that vote and let the chips fall where they may. And so next week, I am going to be calling this motion to vacate. Absolutely calling it. I can't wait to see Democrats go out and support a Republican speaker and have to go home to their primaries and have to run for Congress again, having supported a Republican speaker, a Christian conservative. I think that'll play well. I'm excited about it. I think
so the interesting thing about this is that she's making it like she has a super plan in which to in which to backfoot Democrats. And the irony, of course, is that the vast majority of these Democrats, particularly ones in any sort of like purplish frontline districts, as it were, are desperate to show that they can reach across the aisle.
They love it, yeah.
They love that stuff, sadly, in my estimation. If only Democratic voters would punish Democrats for doing anything that is helpful to Republicans. But we're not quite there yet.
Let the chips fall where they may.
Schwing State says, what are the chances that if MTG called this vote and the Dems would renege and vote for Jeffries? I mean, Jeffries could get the speakership, but they would still not have the majority. So there's really not necessarily a lot that could happen in terms of legislation. I guess theoretically what you could do is maybe, well, I don't even know if you could rejigger the rules at that point. You wouldn't be able to pass any other operations. It would be basically be frozen. And it's probably not worth their while if they made an agreement with Johnson. But it will, who knows how long that agreement was for. We'll give you 2 votes. We'll give you 3 votes. Who knows? In a moment, we're going to be talking to Tyler Vasseur. He is a letter carrier and a shop steward in the National Association Letter Carriers, Branch 9. And we're seeing in that union sort of the same thing we've seen in other unions, is that there's a growing sort of like members, grassroots movement to become a little bit more militant. And it certainly worked out with the UAW. Then we'll also be talking to David Dayen, executive editor of American Prospect, about both Live Nation and non-compete clauses. But first, a word from our sponsors. I know what most of you are probably thinking when you look at me. Why don't you just use incognito mode? Well, I'll tell you something about incognito mode. It does not hide your activity. Doesn't matter what mode you use or how many times you clear your browsing history, your internet service provider can still see every single website you've ever visited. That's why even when I'm home, I never go online without using ExpressVPN. It is super, super easy to use a VPN. And if you've never used one before, I know it sounds intimidating. Believe me, it is the easiest thing you can possibly do. You put the app on your phone, you press the button. Boom. I want to thank ExpressVPN supporting the Majority Report. And here's their deal. You visit expressvpn.com/majority, and you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. For those of you who are not so great at math, that means 15 months for the price of 12. ExpressVPN is an app. It reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers, and you can choose which one. Just by location. Or you can just do the default. It doesn't matter. So your ISP can't see the sites you visit. ExpressVPN also keeps all of your information secure by encrypting 100% of your data with the most powerful encryption available. Most of the time, you don't even realize that ExpressVPN is running. It runs completely seamlessly in the background. It is, again, so easy to use. You tap one button, you're protected. Bingo, bango. ExpressVPN is available on all your devices. It's available on your phones, your computers, your smart TV. You can put it onto your router. Super easy. There is no excuse for you not to be using it. Protect your online activity today with the VPN that is rated #1 by CNET and Mashable. Visit my exclusive link, expressvpn.com/majority. You can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/majority, expressvpn.com/majority to learn more. Also, Emma not here today. We've run out, but this is usually the day when I would go in and steal some of her cashews. I'm hoping she's not listening to the show today and doesn't hear me say that. And I would do it very cleverly. I would make sure I would take a picture of what her bag looked like, and so that I didn't move it from that exact spot. But that's one of the only downside from nuts.com. Nuts is that sometimes you can cause you to steal your coworkers' stash. I want to thank nuts.com for supporting the Majority Report. And right now, when you go to nuts.com/majority, new customers get a free gift with a purchase and free shipping on orders of $29 or more. You got to try this out. Nuts.com is your one-stop shop for everything, really. Freshly roasted nuts, dried fruit, sweets, pantry staples that you need for cooking, like specialty flours, and more. Their wide selection means there's something for everybody. Nuts.com offers gluten-free options. They have organic choices. They have diet-friendly products. Doesn't matter whether you're looking for something sweet, something salty or savory, or you need to stock up on cooking essentials. There is something there to try. It is worth just going over there and browsing right now. At nuts.com, quality is the top priority. And here's the deal. You want to get some nuts, you can go to the supermarket and you can get a can of nuts, and it's been sitting on that shelf for God knows how long. Nuts.com, they roast their nuts and they pop their corn the same day it ships. So it reaches you deliciously fresh. Unless you have your own nut farm, you've probably never had nuts this fresh before. Satisfaction is guaranteed. You can shop a la carte anytime or opt into hassle-free auto delivery so you never run out of your favorite items. And if you're already stocked up at home, they also sell directly to businesses and have a bunch of great gift options. Right now, Nuts.com offering new customers a free gift with purchase and free shipping with orders of $29 or more at Nuts.com/majority. So go check out all the delicious options at Nuts.com/majority. You're going to receive a free gift and free shipping when you spend $29 or more. That's Nuts.com/majority. Also, your mom or dad with Mother's Day, Father's Day coming up, if they like nuts or dried fruit or sweet or savory snacks, and who doesn't, Nuts.com. We'll put the links in the podcast and YouTube description and also on majority.fm. Quick break, and we'll be right back with Tyler Vasseur. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland off today. Joining me now, Tyler Vasseur. He's a letter carrier and shop steward in the National Association of Letter Carriers, Branch 9. Tyler, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks for having me. Happy International Workers' Day.
Indeed, on May Day. And first off, let's start off. Where is Branch 9?
We're in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay. And give us you wrote a piece in Labor Notes, and you're talking about trying to build momentum for open bargaining in the letter carriers. Before we get to what open bargaining means, give us the lay of the land in terms of like unions for the post office.
Sure. Yeah. So there's actually 4 unions at the post office. There's the National Association of Letter Carriers, which represents city letter carriers. There's the Rural Letter Carriers Association, which represents just rural carriers. There's the APWU, which represents just about every inside worker, clerks, mechanics, and so on. And then there's one specifically for like the forklift operators, the National Mail Handlers Union. So there's 4 unions. The post office.
And how did it come about that there's like a rural and an urban different unions for that?
I'm actually reading a book right now called Undelivered that's going over the history of the post office, specifically around the 1970 strike into today. And they talked a little bit about how that came about. It was just jurisdictional stuff. They just, for some reason, when rural delivery was established, a rural union was established there.
So when when there is bargaining to be done, you're all federal workers. How does that go about? I mean, are your contracts synced between urban and rural carriers, or do you have separate contracts? And who is it that the negotiations theoretically take place with?
Yeah, so unfortunately, none of the 4 contracts are synced. There was a time when we bargained all together, and then slowly, I can't remember exactly if it was in the 90s or in the early 2000s, classic sort of divide and conquer tactics were used to say, hey, if you bargain separately, you can probably get more than these other guys. And so now none of the 4 contracts are synced, unfortunately. And then when negotiations happen, it's between the leadership of our union, our executive council, the business agents. There's a bargaining team and management, USPS's counterparts. That's who the negotiations go on between.
And I should say, I mean, you noted that today's International Workers' Day, May 1st. Sean Fain, the head of the UAW, has called for, in the wake of the successful strikes they had against the Big Three months ago, called for everybody to try and sync their contracts up for May 1st, 2028. And the value of that, of course, is, and particularly, I would imagine, across the 4 unions in the Postal Service, is that if they express solidarity with each other, their ability to bring the Postal Service to its knees is even that much more powerful. And it makes you question as to why things would be unsynced in this area. And of course, starting in the 70s, we started to see sort of the diminishment of union power across the board. All right, so you're calling for open bargaining. What does open bargaining mean?
So what we're calling open bargaining is so we passed a resolution in Branch 9. It's taken off across the country. We can get into that in a second. But what our open bargaining resolution calls for, it calls for more transparency and regular updates during the negotiation process, similar to what the UAW or maybe the Teamsters at UPS did, where they regularly release information. This is what management is offering. This is what we're fighting for. So we talk about transparency, regular updates during the negotiation process, but then really crucially, the important aspect of this is it's not just transparency, but also how do we mobilize the membership? How do we activate the membership to put pressure on USPS, win over the public to our side, build solidarity with other unions, and find leverage points so that we can actually go into negotiations in a position of strength, on the heels of nationwide rallies calling for our main demands. And so that's what our open bargaining resolution calls for, is transparency, regular updates, and the mobilization of members through public rallies around key demands that we're fighting for.
And so in a general sense, I mean, what you're building is a reform movement within your union, the national letter carriers. What is the need for reform? I mean, walk us through where the deficiencies have been with your union, from your perspective.
So, I mean, where to even begin? The biggest thing, I think what a lot of NALC members are starting to see and their eyes are opening is that while they're seeing other unions, especially over the course of the last few years, and in particular 2023, they saw other unions mobilize their members, conduct public contract campaigns, strike action, and even a whole lot short of strike action that strengthen their unions, strengthen their positions, and that they're fighting for, and they fought and won contracts that had record wage gains compared to the previous contract cycles, previous decades. And so I think, especially over the last year, workers and NALC members have seen other unions fight and win, and they're looking around going, we're not even getting updates. And when we do get updates, it's about the process. It's not about what are we fighting for? How can we activate the membership around what we're fighting for? How can we actually win that? I think inflation has played a really, really key role in, radicalizing workers. I think there's workers because of inflation, because they're seeing other unions fight and win, there's heightened expectations. But there's a lot more to it. There's, there was just a whole sort of corruption scandal with our national leadership section of the executive council brought charges against the president. They were very credible charges. We all read the report, and all of them were dropped except for one, sort of slap on the wrist. Now we can get into that later, but it's right. All of these things are combining to, I think, workers have heightened expectations right now of what they expect from their union.
Well, certainly there's been a huge, I mean, the UAW is a huge example of a reform movement. Sean Fain came from that reform movement, and by all accounts, completely changed the way that leadership in the union communicated with union members, and how much they empowered union members to be involved in, not directly into the negotiations, although probably more so, but also in terms of like deciding where, what we're going to do, how militant, how much we're going to demand. And I'm looking at what happened after the 2008 financial crisis. There was there was a contract imposed by an arbitration process. And again, this also, I should say, in 2008 was 2 years after the Postal Service, under a Republican Congress, was forced to pre-fund its retirement and medical insurance accounts by 75 years in advance, which no entity, private, public, maybe in the world, has ever been obligated to do. But it was a way for Republicans to sort of force privatization. And all of a sudden there was this massive operating deficit that the post office was working on. Post office traditionally gets no money from the U.S. government. It is self-funding. So tell us what came out of that contract, because it's astonishing how backwards we went in terms of providing compensation for postal workers.
Yeah, so in that contract, the contract immediately following the financial crisis, I mean, we saw it not just in the letter carriers, but we saw unions across the country take concessionary contracts. That was a big part of the push for a fight back in the UAW, is they said, we gave you all these concessions, and now there's record profits. Where are those profits coming from? They're coming from our labor. We need, X, Y, and Z. Same thing happened at the post office. In particular, I'm familiar with the NALC contract. In that contract, there was a non-career workforce was pushed through called city carrier assistants, where, you can be a city carrier assistant for an undisclosed amount of time, a year, 2 years, 3, 4, and that you're forced with mandatory overtime whenever they need to use you. The wages were slashed really much lower. A two-tier system was established where technically they say, it's technically not a two-tier system. You end on the same top pay, but it takes, I can't remember the exact numbers. But
it's 8 years. 14 years. 14 years to reach it.
And we used to be regularly 8 years to reach top pay. I started in 2018 at $16.76 an hour, and I have coworkers who started in the early 2000s making $20 an hour. In 2003, 2004, and just to show you how much wages and working conditions have deteriorated at the post office, and how they used the pre-funding mandate, that retiree benefits thing that the Republicans pushed through, how they used the pre-funding mandate and the financial crisis in broader society. They used that to attack wages, attack working conditions. And I think we're dealing with that now. And I think workers, because of their heightened expectations, are saying, okay, well, we're not going to accept that anymore. We need to fight for more.
And but leadership seems to be unreachable on some level.
That's right. Yeah. That's what we're trying to do.
So there seems to be like two aspects to this. One is pushing specifically for more open bargaining, but also this is it appears it's gonna require a reform of the union, either in terms of its attitude or its leadership or both. And so how are you going about that?
Yeah, so I think to me, this open bargaining resolution. So we passed it in Branch 9 in Minneapolis back in November. And then we thought, okay, let's see if we can get some traction on this. It only takes one branch passing a resolution. It goes to the convention. You don't need a dozen branches to do it, but you can get other branches, and we call our locals branches. It's for clarification. It's an old union. If we wanted to have built-in support, we wanted to get as many branches discussing these ideas, passing the resolution as possible, signing down. And so we've gotten 25 NALC branches and one state association so far that have passed this resolution. So we...
When is the convention?
Convention's in August in Boston. And so the point I was trying to get to was the open bargaining resolution. We put the call out there. Okay, it's one thing to put it out there. Let's actually try to get organized. Let's organize Zoom meetings. And so we've been organizing monthly, nationwide organizing meetings on Zoom starting in January. And we've done one roughly once a month until then around the open bargaining resolution. Hey, do you want to fight to build a fighting NALC? Pass the open bargaining, come to these meetings, discuss these ideas, pass the open bargaining resolution. Through that process, we've found that there are hundreds, and in reality, thousands, although we've made contact with hundreds and hundreds of NALC members who don't want to just fight for open bargaining. They want to fight to transform our union. They're looking around and seeing, there was it was kind of a joke that an NALC member said at the last meeting. She said, and she's in the Detroit area. She jokingly said, yeah, we always joke at our station, we need a Sean. And I said, what do you mean by that? She said, Sean Fain, Sean O'Brien, just kind of people are seeing that there are other leaders, and we can discuss all day long critiques of this or that approach that these leaders have taken. But the point is, we're in a new era for the labor movement, and we're seeing leaders, step into that role and actually take up the fight. We're seeing members wanting to get more involved. And so through open bargaining and through trying to build the movement to get the open bargaining resolution passed in as many branches as possible, it's actually become clear to us that what we likely need is to build an actual reform caucus, a reform movement in the union. Now, that's a term that I think is becoming more and more popular this year. I just was at the Labor Notes conference a few weeks ago, and that was, it's incredible to see. It's not just happening in the letter carriers. It's not just happening in the UAW. It's happening around the country. And so that, I think, is what the next step that the people that I work with most closely in the Build a Fighting NALC movement, how do we take this and actually build, there's a real potential there, but we got to be smart about how we launch something and make sure we have a solid program, bring along as many members as possible in that process.
Okay, so if I'm working out a branch in Worcester, Mass, or I'm in, I'm trying to think of other cities outside of Worcester. I can't think of any other cities in the country. But how do I get in touch with you if I want to just listen in on one of these Zoom meetings, find out about both the open bargaining resolution for the convention in August, but also maybe the next steps in developing a reform caucus? How do I do that?
So I've been pretty open about just sharing my email with people. So far, it's worked out. We hasn't gotten too crazy.
I might get a second email if I were you. But if you want to do that, or people can also, I would imagine, hit you up on Twitter, maybe, or.
I'm not on Twitter,
okay.
Unfortunately, for my own.
All right, then give your email out, buddy.
No, but the biggest thing is attend these our next upcoming meetings on June 2nd. And there's a number of mail carrier specific podcasts that are very widely listened to that I've been able to go on for interviews. It's the reason I got this microphone and get the word out. And they've been really good about sharing that information on this. There's 24 mail carrier Facebook groups and Reddit and on Discord, and getting the information out that way. And so, I'd be happy to share that registration link with you all here at Majority Report.
We'll take that and we will post it in both when we clip this and in the main show description, both the podcast and the YouTube and on the website. Lastly, let me ask you one more question. I'm just getting one from an IMer entitled The Worst Mailman. Does Tyler see David Noble as a credible challenger to current leadership?
I respect David Noble's work that he's done for decades in this union. For a long time, he was the lone voice of dissent and reform within the NALC. And I think now we're starting to actually see that there's a broader movement and a broader sort of membership that wants to get involved. And so I think for the next election, there is actually a pretty credible slate that's being put together from, national and local leadership from around the country calling themselves the Concerned Letter Carriers, CLC, and they're putting together a reform slate to challenge the current administration in 2026. And for me, that is the most serious challenge that we will see against this administration, against this sort of entrenched bureaucracy that exists at the top in NALC. And so for me, I would say the CLC is where I would put my support. And I think that's the most credible option that we have to build a fighting NALC, actually take leadership and put forward a fight, mobilize the members, and actually, win serious gains for the members of the NALC.
Tyler Vasseur, we will take your email and we will put it in that description if you want us to. At the very least, we will put the link to that registration.
Registration would be great, yeah.
Letter carrier and shop steward in the National Association of Letter Carriers, Branch 9. Gmail, get a second email address. So trust me on this. Really appreciate you coming on today.
All right. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, David Dayen, who will also be giving out his email address in just a moment. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland off today. Nevertheless, David Dayen did show up. And despite Emma's absence, he's the executive editor of the American Prospect. Also the host of the weekly American Prospect Roundup on Fridays.
The weekly Roundup. This is like
on demand.
This is like Fox and Right Side Broadcasting Network getting together.
Exactly. This is a big crossover episode.
Yeah, big crossover.
And my understanding is that your Friday show is best enjoyed on demand, right? When you can actually play it at any time.
You can enjoy it anytime you want, just as you can enjoy the Majority Report anytime.
That's also true. That's also true.
You have all kinds of we are available when you need it.
Well, I wanted you on today because we just had a letter carrier on, and I know that nobody shares my obsessions with the post office more than you. In fact, maybe your obsession with the post office was probably my gateway drug for that. But
yeah, I mean, obviously it's waned a bit since we had a pilot program alleged for a postal banking option that I think the Prospect in testing the system represented about 20% of the transactions.
Yeah, well, they did a very good job about making it not clear that it existed, too.
Yes, that is true.
And I would say
designed to fail.
Hopefully, hope springs eternal. Maybe that'll be something in the future that an administration will expend.
Look, I mean, the last couple weeks, we have seen the possibilities there. of what you can do with personnel with the will and ability to get things done, and a creative group of ideas. I mean,
that is the segue into the FTC's. Let's talk about this. I mean, this is a big deal. The FTC, they had announced, I guess it was a year ago or so, maybe 9 months, that they were going to start the process of finalizing or establishing this rule. What is the rule? What is their authority to do so?
Yeah, it goes back to the beginning of 2023, actually, is when they proposed this rule to ban non-compete agreements. So if non-compete started as a way to protect and preserve corporate trade secrets, really, among senior executives in various fields. They said, you know what, you can't go to our rival and tell them everything that we do, and then give your new company an unfair advantage. That was the idea. Now, there are other trade secret laws that restrict that, but these agreements sort of became somewhat standard in among senior executives. And over the last 20 years, they have bled into all sorts of different occupations, as ridiculous as dog groomers, as short order cooks, as janitors.
Fast food restaurants sometimes will do this as well.
Fast food restaurants. As if there is just a tremendous amount of trade secrets that you get by grooming a dog, that you are giving your new business an unfair advantage for. Roughly 30 million people in the United States work under non-compete agreements or some variation thereof.
Insane.
Yeah,
because that seems like it's probably like what, 20% of our workforce?
It's more like 30. It's an incredible number, and according to the, why is this done? It's very clear. It's a wage suppression tactic. If you can't, by your own contract, go across the street to a competitor of your business, then your business doesn't have to worry about that competitor offering you more money,
right,
for your labor. It's a version of what we call monopsony. It shrinks the pool of buyers of labor, the pool of companies, employers, for your particular skills and talents. And it's nothing more than wage suppression. It's also bad for the economy. I live in a state, California, that actually made non-competes illegal in the 1800s, made these kind of agreements illegal. And it also happens to be the home of Silicon Valley and a tremendous amount of innovation in this economy and high incomes, because engineers and folks that work in tech do not have to worry about this. And so this is where these businesses have traditionally been located.
It makes it easier to start a new business, in other words, because you don't have to go far afield to find
weight. Right. It's not a lead weight on competition. So what the FTC did is they put out this proposed rule in January of 2023, and they sought comments. They got over 26,000 comments. Over 25,000 of those were positive. Saying,
I can't do the math on that, but that seems like an overwhelming majority.
A significant amount, yeah, and saying that this is a real strain on my career, my livelihood, my life. And so a couple weeks ago, the FTC came out and said, we're going to ban all these non-competes. The only ones that are still going to be enforceable are ones on senior executives that were already in place before the ban.
And so there's no new, that's amazing. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the IMs we got. My ex-girlfriend was under a non-compete agreement for her job of Brazilian waxing. Someone else says, my wife was a dog groomer and used to work for PetSmart. We had to move to a different state to start her grooming business after PetSmart threatened us. I mean,
and another way they do this is through something called training repayment agreement provisions, where in the contract it'll say, oh, you can go across the street to PetSmart, but you owe us all the money that we spent on you as a worker teaching you how to groom dogs. And by the way, it comes to $50,000 or some ridiculous amount. So in the initial rule, these weren't totally banned, but it's much stronger now in the final rule that these trap agreements, these training repayment agreement provisions, are going to be severely restricted under this new rule.
I mean, it is amazing to me that we had 30% of the workforce under these type of restrictions and never, ever heard about it. I mean, right. I mean, you know, like obviously, like I've heard about it a little bit, but it's not anything that's talked about in general. And it has been a huge wage suppression tool. I mean, that's why I had everybody here sign one. Because I didn't, that was the best way to keep them from doing other shows.
Absolutely. So yeah, nobody listens to the show. So
I'm saying these guys.
No, why would they? They're busy. They're busy on the internet. So the FTC estimates that the annual change in pay because of this ban will be $300 billion a year.
That's amazing.
$300 billion a year in compensation that will now properly not stay in profits, but will go to workers because they have more bargaining power.
How?
Unless.
Well, I was just about to say, how is it that the populist Republican Party or its patrons at the Chamber of Commerce will stop this?
I mean, interestingly, there is bipartisan support for non-compete bans on Capitol Hill. You know, when this came out, Matt Gaetz labeled himself for not the first time as a conservative. A conservative who's a supporter of Lena Khan, the chair of the FTC, and there are bipartisan bills in Congress. However, the group that you correctly designated that doesn't like this is the business community, because they like that $300 billion to be able to keep that to themselves rather than having to distribute it to their workers. So,
well, it's also I would imagine it's also not. And I just want to just make this point clear. It's wage suppression. But it also is a serious tool of control, because not only are you not having to pay your workers more, they're having to take more crap from you as a boss, because they have less options. That's it. Bottom line. Even if they went across the street for the same amount of money, but maybe they had better hours or they had more respect at the. None of that is a threat anymore because you've locked them in. You're not going to be able to do what you can do because I've just signed you up, and you're basically, I mean, on some level, it's sort of like indentured servitude.
They have fewer options, and also because of the effect on startups, the inability for startups to get the talent they need to start new competing businesses, it's a tool of market power. It's a tool to keep incumbent firms free of competition from nascent competitors. So there are a variety of reasons why the Chamber of Commerce in particular would be very interested in keeping this arrangement under the status quo. So it actually started right before them. It took the Chamber of Commerce all of one day to file a lawsuit. Surprisingly, where do you think the lawsuit was filed, Sam?
Well, I'm going to guess it was probably like in the Fifth Circuit federal courts or somewhere around there, right? Was it?
Yeah, it was actually in Texas, where this apparently is a big problem.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Because the day before the Chamber of Commerce's lawsuit, just hours after the non-compete ban was put into place, finalized by the FTC, a company called Ryan LLC, which is a real piece of work company, they filed their lawsuit a day earlier. Now, the lawyer that was designated to file that lawsuit, their chief counsel, is a guy named Eugene Scalia.
Where have I heard that name before?
You might have heard that name before because he is the son of the former Supreme Court Justice. He was also Donald Trump's labor secretary.
Yes.
And when he's not in office, he is generally seen as the hired gun to knock out rules. He did this throughout the Obama administration and here again during the Biden administration.
Did they both file in Texas? Because
Indeed. They filed in different parts of Texas.
Now, there's been a change to the sort of like to the venue shopping. Well, there's been a change in the venue shop. It hasn't taken place yet.
There was an alleged change to the venue shopping, but so the Judicial Conference came out and said, we should do this differently so that there aren't these circumstances like there are in Texas where there is a judicial district with one judge. And so if you file in Amarillo, you're going to get that judge who happens to be a Trump appointed judge to hear your case. So the Judicial Conference said, well, what we should actually do is if you file in Amarillo, you should give it to the entire district there, not just Amarillo, but the entire northern district of Texas, for example, in the case of Amarillo. So that there would be some random assignment there. And the chief judge of the Northern District of Texas said, nope, I don't want to do that. Yeah.
I didn't realize.
And a lot of pressure from the Republicans in Congress. Basically, the Judicial Conference stood down and said this was non-binding guidance. And would you please change your policy? To which the head of the Northern District of Texas said no.
No, thank you.
So that we're still in the situation of judge shopping, and that's why, of course, these plaintiffs are filing in Texas, where they pretty much know. Even under the Judicial Conference's rule, it's not like there are a bunch of liberal judges in Texas. The fact that we have the blue slip rule, and there's a lot of deference given to particular home state senators over who the judges are in their particular areas, means that if you're filing in Texas, you have a pretty good chance, no matter where you file, that you're going to file in front of a conservative judge.
I imagine too, if you've got if you put in multiple cases, that just increases your odds. It's like putting down a couple more chips on a roulette wheel. You've got more bites at that apple. So
they got a Trump judge in the Eastern District for the Chamber of Commerce case. They, I believe, have a Trump judge in the Northern District for this case of Ryan LLC. By the way, Ryan LLC, there's this guy named G. Brent Ryan who's the head of it. And it's basically a business tax services company. They get huge discounts on corporate taxes for their clients. This guy literally advised Trump on his tax plan in 2016, before the 2016 election. They gave several hundreds of thousands of dollars to the Trump inauguration. He's a part of the conservative ecosystem.
Right.
And then he hired Trump's Secretary of Labor to file this case in the jurisdiction. Now, so it was in Texas. That's the district court level. If it goes to an appeals court, it would go to the Fifth Circuit, and if it goes beyond that, it would go to the Supreme Court, where there's a conservative majority. So we basically have this funnel for these kinds of advances, regulatory advances by the Biden administration, where they never have to touch anything but a conservative activist, essentially, in terms of a judge, to see whether or not they will be allowed to go through. And the arguments being made here are the same arguments we've heard over and over. First of all, they say that, well, the FTC isn't allowed to write rules, even though there's a very clear language in the FTC Act that says they are allowed to write rules and regulations. And then in the same breath, and this is true in both of the lawsuits, they say they're not allowed to write rules. But even if they are, they're not allowed to write this rule because this rule is a major question. And
$300 billion. It means it's a major question doctrine, which is, just to remind people, this is a doctrine that is significantly young, about the same age as my daughter, who is a freshman in college, and not even really that old. Let me put it this way. It did not exist anywhere except for in the minds of some people, maybe in the Federalist Society. Scalia, I think it was, oddly enough, Scalia may have brought it up about 18 years ago, just sort of like offhandedly. This is sort of a major question. And within the past couple of years, the Supreme Court has decided we don't really need a principle in law. We just need essentially a, do not pass, go, collect $200 type of card, which is a wild card where if we look at something and we think it shouldn't really fall into the rubric of anything that's established, written or in terms of common law, we're just going to call it the major questions doctrine or a major question. And therefore we can just decide, we don't want this to happen.
The specific thing they say is that, if it's such a big rule, then Congress should have said very specifically what it is they wanted done. You can't have the regulatory agencies make those determinations. Now, I mean, the funny thing is that the FTC was put in place because there was a feeling in Congress at the time, this is in the early 20th century, that the Sherman Act, the antitrust laws, were not working because they were getting into the courts and it was a slow process. And so they said, what we want to do is create an agency that has the ability to enforce these things and keep up with the innovations of business in their various practices. That's literally why the FTC exists, is because Congress said, we need to put these major questions of the evolving state of American business in the hands of an expert agency.
I mean, that's the same theory exists for something like the EPA and saying, we want a Clean Water Act, and we're not going to know the new chemicals that corporations decide they need for their business practices and dump it in the river. And of course, we can't be in the business of like sitting there with a test tube every day and voting on the latest poison that they're putting in the river. The same theory.
Yes, exactly. The other funny sidelight here is that where Scalia enters this picture is his version of this doctrine is, well, if a law hasn't been used in a while, then it shouldn't be allowed to be used. Essentially, he said, and the way he phrased it is, we shouldn't hide elephants in mouse holes. This was the Scalia statement, very, very wise Scalia statement that was in one of these particular cases. In the Ryan LLC lawsuit written by his son, he quotes that. So he's quoting his own dad in saying that, which is a ridiculous notion. Like somehow that laws have a time limit, that if you don't use them, that they blow up like they're a bomb or something. This has no real meaning in any kind of real jurisprudence except for at the Supreme Court right now.
And particularly at a Supreme Court that basically says we're going to determine the meaning of today's laws based upon what they were 250 years ago or something, or what the context in which they were drafted. All right, so let me ask you this. Has this rule gone into effect and can be stopped by it being enjoined in one of these district courts in Texas, which is the way they've been doing it? Like, so today, are these contracts null and void as far as the FTC is concerned, or what?
No, there's a 4-month delay in terms of when these will be fully rendered void. And so in that time is the ability for an injunction. So that is what both the Chamber of Commerce and this Ryan LLC plaintiff, that's what they're asking for. And you know, I mean, it's hard to say they won't get it at all. It's hard to be very confident with the state of the courts that we have. You know, I think the FTC has a very good case to make that they've prepared for this for a while. And there's a larger thing going on here, which is Lina Khan, even before she got to the FTC, wrote this paper with Rohit Chopra, who was at the time on the FTC, saying the FTC has all this rulemaking authority and they never use it. It was basically dormant rulemaking authority for 40 years. Basically, they stopped in the late 1970s. And so she wrote this paper with Chopra and said, you know, actually, the FTC has the ability to do this, and they should take this action if they see unfair methods of competition, which this, you know, a non-compete rule certainly sounds like an unfair method of competition, that they should make, instead of going on a case-by-case basis, having to adjudicate every example of this and apply it to the unfair methods of competition rule, they should make a blanket bright line rule that says, no, you can't do this. And then they enforce it after the fact. When Khan got into office, they wrote up a policy guidance statement that said, we have the ability to write these rules. And here's all the reasons why. And we're going to show you. And in the DC circuit, there was a ruling in the 1970s that said, yes, the FTC has the ability to make these rules. And they did make these rules throughout the 60s and throughout the 70s. And then they just stopped. But so then the non-compete became the first test case of this. They're like, we're going to pick an egregious set of behaviors and we're going to write our unfair methods of competition rule around it. And we're going to dare the other side to try to get rid of it, because it's incredibly unpopular to say I'm for non-compete rules, right? So this case really is going to determine whether or not the FTC has rulemaking authority at all. And if they do, they can use it in a whole host of other contexts. So banning exclusive deals where you say, I'm going to make a contract and you're a sole source on it. So maybe, the law, the potential legislation we saw around big tech, where they self-preference their own products.
Yep.
That could be seen as an unfair method of competition. The FTC could write a rule saying you can't self-preference. So all of this rulemaking is contingent on this surviving this court challenge. And so that's why it's even more important than just non-compete.
I mean, it in some instances, it sort of feels like that's actually the actual story here for the chamber. This is for the chamber and for, Ryan LLC and whatever the conservative movement and corporate movement is. This is the idea that it's about non-competes is secondary to the idea that we can incapacitate the FTC from doing any rules in any time in the future. And that's the real principle that they're fighting on. All right. I wanted to talk about the Live Nation, and maybe we'll have to do that at another time. But let's tease that story so we will link to it and people can check it out. You went to
we'll tease it for the Prospect Weekly Roundup for Thursday. We'll just get people excited about it.
Is it on Thursday?
I'm sorry, on Fridays. Fridays.
Well, Thursdays.
12:30.
People should tune in on Thursdays.
Eastern time.
Thursdays. Tune in on Thursdays for the.
Look, as long as they're not tuning in the Majority Report,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't really matter to me what day it is.
Well, if you want to hear more about this Live Nation thing, you'll be able to watch it on demand on the Prospects channel. But give us just sum it up for us. Use the napkin as a sum up for us, because it was really that was pretty amazing.
It's unbelievable. So, look, Live Nation is under antitrust investigation. The Justice Department probably within weeks is going to file a lawsuit against them. There's legislation in Congress that is looking at not only ticketing markets, but the way that Live Nation, which is a dominant player in ticketing, in event management, in artist promotion, in venue operations. The way that their business practices go, the Congress is looking at, dismantling those. So they need friends, right? And so who do they go to when they need friends? They go to DC insider media. So one thing that is a little less understood around, everybody knows about the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and like there's this glitzy affair in Washington where the media elite and the political elite and a bunch of celebrities get together and they have a laugh or two. But there's now like a whole week of events around the Correspondents' Dinner where these media outlets throw parties that they invite people to. And Axios is one of these DC kind of insider media organizations. And they threw 2 parties last week around the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
That's amazing.
And Live Nation was the co-host of both of these events. And so you mentioned napkins. So I was passed a picture of the cocktail napkins at one of these events, which, by the way, Jelly Roll performed at, who is an artist. Live Nation produces his concerts, his tours.
No, wait a second. So am I to understand you were not at any of these parties?
They had security locked down pretty tight, and so the prospect did not get into any of these parties.
But you were not invited.
We were. I was not invited. But
they don't get the heavy hitters in DC.
I obtained this cocktail napkin, and the napkin was lobbying. Basically, the napkin said on it. I don't have the exact quote.
I have it. It's fans paid on average $38. This is what, like, it's a picture of a napkin. Can you get this, Bradley, and put it up there?
Yeah. Picture of
Bradley,
a napkin.
It's a picture of the napkin. It says Live Nation in the corner, and it says fans paid an average of $38 an hour an entry-level U.S. concert ticket in 2023. So the idea is basically to let all of the reporters know, like, man, it is cheap to see a show these days. Here, we just put it up.
Yeah, there we go.
And incidentally,
to let the reporters know, to let the political types who are there know, to let the staffers know, that's who goes to these things, that it's not a big deal. Now let's break that down, right? It doesn't say Live Nation concerts, it just says concerts, right? It says entry level ticket. I have no idea what that means. Is that like the obstructed view seats in an amphitheater?
Couldn't it just mean like
no idea.
$5 at the local bar to come and see, anybody play or something?
It could be something with a $10 cover charge. So it's a meaningless statistic. It's a ridiculous statistic. You can't talk to the statistic. It's a napkin. You can't exactly get more information from it to understand the context of it. And there were other napkins that had other quotes on it, by the way. It's just sort of seeding the propaganda environment for Live Nation. And this is part of and I say this in peace, this is part of an overall process. Live Nation, about 5-6 years ago, had 4 lobbyists in Washington. They now have 37.
Wow.
25 of those are former staffers. 2 of those are former members of Congress. One of them is the former chief of staff to Amy Klobuchar, who's the biggest critic of Live Nation in Washington.
That's
so
amazing.
There is this huge blitz, millions and millions of dollars in lobbying to try to manage the information environment, right, around an imminent lawsuit against the company, and also this potential legislation, which is bipartisan and actually has some momentum behind it.
Well, folks can hear more about this both and we will link to your piece at the American Prospect and on the roundup that you do sometime during the week. And I will also say that that napkin gave me a great idea, because when I'm going to print up a bunch when Saul has his bar mitzvah, and I'm still working on like what I'm going to put on the
That's
the
a great idea. It should just be the Live Nation napkins.
Well, or I could
maybe you
do
can
that
buy them
one,
somewhere.
or I could just remind people, how much this dinner cost or something like that. I don't know. There'll be a bunch of, but it's I feel like it's an underutilized tool in which to
Absolutely
shape people's
look,
perspective.
You don't have to pay additional expenses for napkin lobbyists. You don't have to worry about whether they're going to stay on message. It's going to be clear. It's going to be right there in front of you. You're going to get access. I think napkin lobbying is a next frontier.
I don't know why we don't have Majority Report napkins on our merch page, frankly. And we're gonna this is gonna be the start of something new. But David Dayen, always a pleasure, executive editor at the American Prospect. Again, we'll put links to both pieces on Live Nation and what the FTC's latest rulemaking will mean or may mean going forward. Always a pleasure.
All right, thanks a lot.
Thanks. Folks, Miller time. Hey, Sam, have you ever considered acting in a pharmaceutical commercials? We need someone to play the potential side effects of nausea and bloating that might come with the drug. Thanks. I don't know what is going on today, but we're going to head into the fun half in just a moment. Want to remind you, our merch store, we've got 20th anniversary. It's been 20 years. 20 years. We've got mugs, we've got hats, we've got shirts. 20-year anniversary of the Majority Report. Head to shop.majorityreportradio.com and you will be able to pick up an anniversary mug or whatever it is. Check it out. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Also, your support, that's what keeps this show humming along. Become a member today. Join themajorityreport.com. Join themajorityreport.com. Join the Discord. If you're a letter carrier, you want to trade stories, you want to hook up with Tyler Vasseur, we've got a lot of people in the Discord who I know. We've been talking about reforming the letter carriers union. MajorityDiscord.com. Also, justcoffee.coop. Fair trade coffee and hot chocolate. It is a co-op. Everything is fair trade. They support their farmers, and they also have the Majority Report blend. It's a triple win, win-win-win, as we used to say back in the day. Justcoffee.coop. Bradley, ESVN.
On ESPN on Monday, we recapped the NFL draft as well as the what had transpired in the NBA and NHL playoffs as of the time of our going on air. So we were not able to discuss the gut-wrenching, rip your heart out loss that the Knicks suffered at the hands of the Philadelphia 76ers last night.
That's why Emma's gone today.
Which is potentially one of the reasons why Emma did not come in today. So youtube.com/ESVN show if you would like to catch up there or check out some of our clips, and we'll be back on Monday.
Matt!
Last night on Left Reckoning, we had Danny Bessner talking about his barn burner of article that's been really controversial about the death of Hollywood in Harper's Magazine, and we also talk in the fun half about Vivek Ramaswamy and Joe Rogan. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Folks, we will see you in the fun half.
You are in for it.
All right, folks, 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Oh, no.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you could imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boy is back. And the alpha males are back.
Just wanna degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Snowflake says what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
Oh no, Sam Seder! What a fucking nightmare!
Bring back DJ Dayen.
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Dayen.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense. You see white people doing drugs, they look worse than normal white people, and all white people look disgusting.
And the alpha males.
Psych. Fuck them. Fuck them. Snowflake says what? Snowflake says what?
A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank. Okay, I'm making stupid money. Hell of a lot of bank. A hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are black. And the Africans are back.
When you see Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part